Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, June 10th. I'm here on the East Coast of the United States. My name is Jeff Goldberg, and welcome to the Sales Pro Network. This is a live broadcast and podcast. I'm Jeff Goldberg, your founder. I founded the Sales Pro Network because I'm a sales coach and trainer. I work with both individuals and organizations to help them get measurable and sustainable sales increases. And I did found this group because I wanted to elevate the profession of sales, give salespeople a place where you can come and get great advice from people like myself, and I have a lot of my competitors here also willing to help you out. And every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we either do a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales, or I do a live training. I have to tell you guys, if you haven't been paying attention to the network, I posted yesterday that I interviewed a guest for you guys that is mind-blowing. Unfortunately, we're booked up till September. Well, actually, fortunately, we've got some great guests coming up. And this guy blew my mind yesterday. I always talk to the people that I bring to you for about 10 to 20 minutes before I actually agree to give them an interview, because I want to make sure that anytime I bring you, I'm bringing you great people. This guy blew my mind yesterday. I can't wait. I almost said, hey, can you do it tomorrow? He's a very busy guy, so there's no way he would have. But I'm telling you, stick around. There's some great stuff coming. If you are watching us live, please say hello in the comments. I'm going to be sharing my screen in a second because today's guest had to cancel just a day or two ago. She had some personal issues. Fascinating lady. She's an empowerment coach who, when she came to this country, was arrested at the airport because they thought she was a prostitute. Fascinating lady, but she has some personal issues she had to take care of. So she's been rescheduled to, I think, late August or early September. So today what we're going to do is we're going to finish up our prospecting training. We've had 2 sessions so far. Today will be the third and final one, where we're going to finish off where we left off last time. If you are watching live, please do say hello in the comments. Let me know that you're here. In a minute when I share my screen, I won't be able to see them, but when we finish, I'll come back and look. If you have any questions about prospecting or anything else, stick those in the comments too. And when I'm done with the training I have to share with you today, I'll be sure to take a look at those. If you're watching us on Facebook and you have not connected your Facebook account to StreamYard, I'm not going to know who you are because it just says Facebook user. Like, let's show you one. There we go. Hello, whoever you are. I have no idea. Well, actually, there is one I know. Good morning, Fran Kohevler. It's good to see you. Greg Kettner, our friend from Work Happy. If you haven't seen the interview we did with Greg, please go back. All the interviews are on our YouTube page. If you guys don't know it, we have a YouTube page. I think it's either called the Sales Pro Network or the Sales Network. If you need it, just let me know and I can give you the link. All the previous ones are also here in the Sales Pro Network under the Media tab. It's under the Media tab. And if you can't find something, just reach out to me, DM me or email me, and I'll make sure to get it to you. But our interview with my friend Greg Kettner is terrific. He helps people to work happy. Also a sweetheart of a guy and a very funny guy. Let's see, who else is here? Good morning, Steve Kent. Good to see you as always, my friend. Joan Langton, good morning. Good to see you. Good morning, Beach Pug's dad from Valerie Heffron. Good morning, Belle. It's good to see you. For those of you who don't know me well, I have a pug who I adore, and I live very close to the ocean. I'm a block away. I love the beach, and most mornings, my pug and I walk down there and take a walk at the beach, and I like to take videos of the waves, and usually my beach pug gets in there. So good to see you, Val. Ben Gibbs, one of my favorite salespeople in the world, is here today. Sherry Wade from Houston. Oh, we've got 2 from Texas today. Good morning, Sherry Wade. Somebody says, always look forward to my Fridays with you, Jeff. Wow. Well, whoever you are, I look forward to doing them too. And good to see you, Ray Aurora. Very good to see you. So let's get going. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get back to finish up the prospecting training. Oh boy, where is it? Hang on, guys. Sorry. Okay, that should do the trick. Of course, I prepared this all in advance and somehow my tab disappeared. Here we go. All right, so when we left off last time, we were doing prospecting training and we were in the middle of objections and rebuttals. We were talking about cold calling. Excuse me. I taught you how to put together a script, and we were talking about what do you say when somebody says no. We talked about what do you say when somebody says I'm happy with my current provider or what I'm doing works. When they tell you no thanks or I'm just not interested, I'm busy right now, or email me your information, then that's where we left off. Today we've got a few more rebuttals because my belief is this: there are only 7 things that people say to you when they won't give you the appointment. You may think it's lots and lots of things, and it may sound like different things, but it really only boils down to 7 different things. And if you know how to rebut those objections, you should be able to get more appointments with decision makers. But you do have to be prepared. So let's move on with the last few. The last 3 are, I don't have a budget for that. We're under contract to somebody else, or I know this doesn't happen to you and it doesn't happen to me, but it happens to some other people sometimes. They'll get an objection that says, we had a bad experience with your company in the past. So let me give you what I say for those. The first one and the second one are pretty much the same. It's just you change the word budget for contract or contract for budget. Other than that, it's the same exact rebuttal. So if somebody says to you, let's just use budget, but again, it's the same thing with contract. If somebody says, oh, gee, we'd love to work with you, Jeff, but we just don't have a budget for that. My response would be this: budget. We're not discussing your budget yet. In fact, we're nowhere near talking about your budget. Why don't we just get together and see if you like what we have to offer? That way, when your budget opens up, you'll think of us. How's Tuesday at 3? Remember, one of the keys to giving a rebuttal is, of course, knowing the rebuttal. Secondly, making it sound like you're making it up off the top of your head, like it's not a script. And at the end of the rebuttal, making sure you ask for the appointment again, because if you think you're going to give a brilliant rebuttal and the prospect is going to go, okay, you got me, they're not. Make sure that at the end of every rebuttal, you once again ask for the order or ask for the appointment. Now, again, this is the same rebuttal for contract. If somebody says we're under contract, the rebuttal is contract. We're not talking about your contract. In fact, we're nowhere near discussing contracts. Let's just get together and see if you like what we have to offer. That way, when your contract is up, you'll think kindly of us. And I want to give you an example. My very first client, when I opened up my consultancy, I'd been working for a sales training company, decided to go into business for myself. My very first client was a large company here on Long Island, got in touch with the right person, and he said, wow, Jeff, you've actually called at a very good time. This was May, either 18 or 19 years ago, and I'm speaking to the right guy, a VP of sales with 100 salespeople under him. He said, this is good timing, Jeff, because we've been talking about doing sales training. The problem is we just don't have a budget for it right now. So what you should do is you should contact me in January, because in January, we'll have our new budget. And my response was, hey, Jerry, we're not talking about your budget. In fact, we're nowhere near discussing your budget. Let's just get together and see if you like what we have to offer. That way, when your budget opens up in January, you'll think kindly of us, hopefully. And he said, well, why don't you call me in December? I said, Jerry, you know what's going to happen in December. You've got the holidays. You got a lot of stuff to do. Let's get together and start the conversation. And Jerry said, you know what? You're right. It can't hurt to get together. Now, here's the interesting thing about this situation. If I listened to everybody who told me they didn't have a budget for training or coaching, I'd probably never do business with anybody. But I got Jerry to agree with a meeting with me. And the great part about this is 3 weeks later, I was training his team, because here's what happened. I met with Jerry once. We had a great meeting. He said, I'm going to put you in front of my boss, which was the senior vice president of sales, the real decision maker who could sign the check. And so a week later, I met with Jerry, his boss, and there were 2 other people. One was the head of training and development, and I can't remember who the other person was. But we had a great meeting. In the middle of the meeting, let me back up. One of the things I like to do when I'm trying to sell sales training to people is I like them to see who I am. When I'm actually in front of them, and you're one person when you're sitting down, but I kind of work standing up. So I like to ask if I can draw something on a whiteboard or on a flip chart or something like that. And it just so happened they had a whiteboard right behind me. And I said, hey, would you mind if I put a few things on the board? And of course they said yes. And I kind of jump up out of my chair and I run and I start drawing things and I turn around so they can see my energy when I'm dealing with their people, because a lot of people tell me they really like my energy. Anyways, as I'm writing stuff on the board and I turn around to look, the decision maker, the senior vice president of sales, gets up, walks right out of the room, doesn't say a word, just walks out. And that's one of those moments where your mind kind of goes crazy and asks, well, what should I do now? Do I stop and wait for him to come back? Do I ask what happened, or do I continue going? And my decision was, I'm just going to continue, because there's nothing I can do about the fact that this guy walked out. And in fact, I was thinking, well, I've probably lost this deal because my decision maker just walked out of the room. But to my great joy, about 5 or 6 minutes later, this gentleman, Phil, walked back in, sat down in his chair, and said these words: Jeff, everybody, I apologize. I did not mean to interrupt any proceedings, but I wanted to go talk to the finance department to make sure we could afford to do this. I've borrowed money from next year's budget. we're going to do this, Jeff. If I had listened to Jerry, a very good guy, by the way, who became a huge champion of mine and really gave me a lot of referrals, as did this guy, Phil. But if I had listened to him on that first call, when he said, why don't you call me in December? Well, a lot can happen between May and December, including 1 million of my competitors reaching out to Jerry and trying to get his attention. Don't let people put you off with budget. Don't let people put you off with contract. Relax them by saying, budget, we're not talking about your budget. In fact, we're nowhere near talking about your budget. Let's just get together and see if you like what we have to offer. That way, when your budget opens up, you'll think of us. How's Tuesday at 3? Let's move on to the last one. Now, I'm assuming that you don't get this objection. I've never had this objection, but I know in some instances you will get an objection where some people will get an objection where the customers or the prospect says, we had a bad experience in the past with you, which means I don't want to work with you. You screwed us over last time. We don't want you. Here's what you have to say. First of all, the first thing you have to do is say, I'm very sorry to hear that. You want to accept the fact that they had a bad experience. Whether they really had one or not is besides the point. If they think they had one, they had one. And it's going to be very difficult for you to get an appointment unless you acknowledge that you're sorry that they had that. And then what I would say is this. I'm very sorry to hear you had a bad experience. Would you please tell me what happened and when? The most important part of it is the and when. So would you please tell me what happened and when? And I'm really listening for that and when. And then you have to shut up and let them explain what happened to them. And they're going to tell you some kind of a story. You did this, or your company did that, or the delivery was that, or whatever the experience was. And all you do is listen and make some noise. Really? Okay, got it. But the most important thing I'm listening for is the when did it happen? So let's assume somebody tells me, and again, I don't get these complaints, this problem, I don't have this experience, but let's say somebody says, hey, Jeff, you know what? We used you 2 years ago and you screwed us over, whatever it was. Hopefully they wouldn't say something like that, but they'll describe whatever the situation is. We used you 2 years ago and we had a bad experience. Got it. That's exactly why I'm calling. So after you've asked them to share the what happened and the when, then you're going to say these words. That's exactly what I'm calling. You weren't the only customer that told us that, and we've taken extensive action to make sure that type of thing doesn't happen again. I'd love to get together with you and show you how we've changed over the last 2 years, last 2 months, last 2 minutes, last 3 days, whenever. That's why it's so important to know when the bad experience happened, because whatever they tell you, that's how long you've been working on fixing the problem, and you'd love to get together and chat with them about it. One of the things you have to remember is that when people give you rebuttals, we've talked about this last time, when people give you a rebuttal, it's typically just a knee-jerk reaction. And in most cases, it's the same thing they say to every salesperson that calls. So don't let it throw you off. Be prepared and expect that every single prospect is going to give you an objection. They won't all, but most do. So if you're prepared by knowing these 7 rebuttals to the 7 most common objections, you will absolutely positively get more appointments. Now, these are what I call general use rebuttals. Sometimes you can't think of anything off the top of your head. By the way, I'm going to back up for a second. What I typically advise for salespeople when I do sales training and teach them this is print out the rebuttals. Print 1 rebuttal on each piece of paper and print them in a large font and hang them on your wall. So there should be 1 objection that says, I'm happy with my current provider, and then the rebuttal should be below that. I'm not interested, and then the rebuttal should be below that. And make them in a big font, 1 on each piece of paper, so there should be 7 pieces of paper. You hang them right on your wall where you make your cold calls. And so they're standing right in front of you. You're staring at them while you're making your calls. And as you're finishing up your scripted opening, remember we put together a scripted opening, you should be looking up at your wall and saying, come on, give it to me. Which objection are you going to give me? And then you're ready. Now remember though, when you have the right rebuttal, you don't just read it real fast. You have to make it sound like you're making it up off the top of your head. But be prepared. Eventually, you can take them off your wall. You won't need them anymore because you'll know them so well. But give yourself a break in the beginning. You should have your script up there. You should have your objections, rebuttal scripts, and you should also have your voicemail script up there. And we're going to talk about voicemails in a couple minutes. But here's some general use rebuttals. First of all, if you can't think of anything else to say, just say, look, there's no pressure. There's no obligation. Let's get together. No pressure, no obligation. Remember, prospects think that we are all high pressure con men and women who are trying to talk them into something they don't want, don't need, or can't afford. Well, that's not you and that's not me, but that's the perception that they have. So let them relax. Hey, let's just get together. There's no pressure, there's no obligation. And let's just get together can be a great rebuttal all by itself. When I was working at the company previous to opening up my own firm, I sat across the aisle. We had cubicles from a guy who that's the only rebuttal he ever used. Let's just get together. And the best part about it was he was from Austria and he had the same accent as Arnold Schwarzenegger. So all day long, I'd hear this guy on the phone going, let's just get together. Let's just get together. It was all I could do to not be, it's the greatest thing. But it really, remember that the objection they're giving you is their knee-jerk reaction. And what we're trying to do is interrupt their automatic negative pattern. In psychology, it's called a pattern interrupt. So they give you the objection. You go, let's just get together. Now, I'd like the other 7 rebuttals that I gave you. I think those are better, but if you can't think of anything else, let's just get together. And actually, this is one of my very favorite rebuttals. Somebody says to you, whatever they're going to say, they're going to give you an objection. And I would say this. In my 48 years as a sales professional, I have never left anyone's office and had them say, that was a waste of my time. I promise I won't waste your time either. Now you got to hit the word promise hard. I promise I won't waste your time either. People don't want to get together with you or me because they think we've got nothing to add of value and we're going to waste their time. You're coming right out and saying, I won't waste your time. Now, if you think about this rebuttal, it really doesn't make sense because if I left your office, I would not hear you saying that was a waste of my time, but it doesn't have to make sense because remember, their objection doesn't make sense. It's just a knee-jerk reaction to try to get rid of people like you and me. So write out your rebuttals, have them prepared. And if anybody wants them, I have this prepared as a Word file. Just put it in the comments or go into the Sales Pro Network and say, hey, Jeff, please send this to me. I look at every post in the Sales Pro Network. Just say, Jeff, please send it to me, or you can DM me, or you can send me an email. I'm happy to share it with you. There's no charge. There's no obligation. I'm not going to sell you something. Look, like all of you, I'd love to sell you all my services, but as I think you know, for the last 2 years, I've never once said, hey, guys, I'd love you to do business with me. Happy to send it to you. You won't get any emails from me afterwards saying, hey, can we talk about business? My pleasure to send it to you. Just ask. Let's move on. I love getting to this point in the day when I do a full day of prospecting training because I always ask very early in the day, who would like to know how to get more of their calls returned from voicemail? And of course, every hand goes up. And then I always love to tell them, it's the last thing we're going to deal with today because I want them to stick around. I don't want people checking out and everybody waits to hear, how do I get voicemails returned? And one of the things I like to tell salespeople is there's about 148 ways to get a voicemail return or to do a good voicemail, about 148 ways. And salespeople tend to use the 2 that don't work. The first one that does not work is not leaving a voicemail. And there's always somebody in every audience I've ever trained that raises their hand and says, Jeff, I don't leave voicemails. And then I ask them a question. I know the answer to the question, but I want to hear them answer it so that everybody can hear it. When I ask them, why don't they leave voicemails? Every single time the answer is, because nobody calls me back. Well, guess what? If you don't leave a voicemail, nobody can call you back. So why not leave a voicemail? Am I as well knowledgeable as you? Boy, that was a phrase that didn't. Do I understand as well as you do that we're not going to get very many voicemails returned? Absolutely. I used to get my voicemails returned at about a 40% rate, but we're talking 10, 12 years ago. Right now, as a sales coach, I'm very happy if my coaching clients can get somewhere between 10 and 20% of their voicemails returned. 20%, that's an outstanding number right now. It's gotten tougher and tougher and tougher to get a voicemail return. So what you want to do is make sure that you're doing the right thing. So I told you the one way that doesn't work is not leaving a voicemail at all. The other way that doesn't work, and this is really the more popular way, the one that doesn't work most is leaving a long, rambling voicemail, which tells your prospect everything about everything. And that sounds kind of like this. Hi, David. This is Jeff Goldberg from Jeff Goldberg & Associates. I'm a sales coach and trainer. I work with companies like yours to help you get more appointments with decision makers, shorten your sales cycle, and close more business more profitably. Don't try to, think in your brain if you know me. We've never met. This is actually a cold call. I was calling to try to get an appointment to come out and sell you some sales training. I'm wearing a black T-shirt today. I've actually got shorts on. I just admitted it to everybody who's listening, but I've got shorts on because I'm going to the beach later and I want to be comfy. The ex-wife is being a good, really good to me these days. We're getting along well. The kids are great. My dog is wonderful. Everything's going very well, and I'm getting a little hungry because I didn't eat breakfast today, and I probably have to walk the dog when I get done with this, but. Is anybody going to listen to that? No. Your prospect's not going to listen to it. You wouldn't listen to it. You would delete that 10 seconds in, and so would they. So the long, rambling voicemail, which tells them everything about everything, simply doesn't work. The one thing that I found that works better than anything else, and again, nothing works great, but the one thing that I found that works really well is curiosity. If you can get the prospect curious about who you are and why you're calling, I say that increases your chances of them returning your call. So you're actually looking at the actual voicemail I would leave if I was making a cold call. Hi, Bob. This is Jeff Goldberg. My phone number is, and then I pause. Why am I pausing? Because I want them to pick up a crayon or a marker or a pen or a pencil or something like that. My phone number is, and I'm going to do it in real time, the way I would really do it in a second, but my phone number is 516-608-4136. Bob, I'm calling you regarding blank, and I'm going to tell you in a second what I would put in the blank. I'm not from blank. I'm calling about blank. Once again, my number is 516-608-4136. So let's talk about the beginning. My phone number is, and then I pause, and I'm going to do it now in real time how I would really leave it, because if you're doing it correctly, the pause is long and uncomfortable. Hi, Bob. This is Jeff Goldberg. My phone number is 516-608-4136. Now that pause felt long and uncomfortable, but I want them to take the time to pick up a pen. If you're doing this, if you're going to try this, the best way to know how long to pause is to make sure that it feels uncomfortable to you. It's about 3 to 5 seconds. And then notice that I said my phone number incredibly slowly. My phone number is 516-608-4136. The way the typical salesperson leaves their phone number sounds like this. My phone number is 516-608-4136. I know my own phone number. That's really my phone number. But I know my own phone number, and I can't write it that fast. So how could you write it? You can't. So make sure it's very, very slow. And the easiest way to know if you're doing it right is the next 5 times you leave a voicemail, as you're leaving the message, as you're saying your phone number, you write your phone number down on a piece of paper. Physically write it down. But remember this, you can write it down faster than they can because you know your number and they don't. So once again, in real time, it would be this. Hi, Bob. This is Jeff Goldberg. My phone number is 516-608-4136. Bob, I'm calling you regarding Cisco Systems. I'm not from Cisco Systems. I'm calling about Cisco Systems. Once again, my number is 516-608-4136. Now, why would I mention Cisco Systems? Cisco Systems was a client of mine. The regarding, what you're going to say is a company that you either are currently doing business with or you've done business with in the past. I want to back up a second, though. You may be noticing right now, I did not say I'm Jeff Goldberg from Jeff Goldberg and Associates. And there's a reason for that. If I say the name of my company, all you have to do is Google it, and you will immediately come up with me. I'm number 1 when you Google Jeff Goldberg and Associates because that's the name of my company. Notice also that I said my full name, Jeff Goldberg. If I had a name that was a little more distinctive, that maybe not so many people have, I would just say this is Jeff. However, when you Google Jeff Goldberg, I'm like 40 pages back because the publisher of The Atlantic, who used to be a writer for New York Magazine, he's got like the first 40 pages. So you're not going to find me when you Google Jeff Goldberg. But if I tell you the name of my company, I'm going to come up first. And remember, we're using curiosity to get people to call us back. So we want to make them curious. Now, I'm going to say I'm calling, I could say any of the many companies I've worked with. The best one to use is if you have a competitor of theirs that's your client. So you can bet when I called Verizon, I said, I'm calling you regarding Cablevision. I'm not from Cablevision, but I'm calling about Cablevision. You don't want to say you're calling regarding that company because then they might think you're from that company. So that's why we throw in, I'm not from Cablevision. I'm calling you about Cablevision. Once again, my number is so-and-so. So this is the first voicemail I leave. Don't leave the name of your company because you don't want them to Google you. If you've got a distinctive name that not a million people have, just say your first name. Pause between my number is and actually giving the phone number. Say the phone number very slowly and leave some name of a company that you either do business with now or have done business with in the past. And while the best one you can leave is a competitor of theirs that you're currently or have done business with in the past, second would be any large, well-known company that they're going to recognize. But third is any company that you do business with. It almost doesn't matter which company you say. You're just saying one because the key is let's get them curious enough to call you back and go, hey, Jeff, you called me up the other day, something about Cisco Systems, but you weren't from them. What can I do for you? All I want to do is get them on the phone. Now, let's say they don't call you back, which most of the time they don't. Sometimes they will, but let's say they don't call you back. I'm going to leave a second voicemail, and the second voicemail is very similar, but I'm going to throw in a little bit extra. Hi, Bob. This is Jeff Goldberg. My phone number is, pause, 516-608-4136. Bob, I called and left you a message last week, but excuse me, haven't heard back from you, so I thought I'd try you again. Just to refresh your memory, I'm calling you regarding Cisco Systems. I'm not from Cisco Systems, but I'm calling you about Cisco Systems. And again, my number is 516-608-4136. By the way, at the end of your message, simply hang up the phone. If you want to say have a nice day, great. The one thing I don't want you to say is please call me back at your earliest convenience. Don't do that. That's begging. Don't lower yourself. The mindset when you're leaving a voicemail, just like any mindset when you're cold calling, is confidence. I know this person is going to call me back based on this message, even though you and I both know they're probably not. But you have to have that confidence in your mind because it's going to come through in your voice. If you sound hesitant, if you've got it in your head that nobody's calling me back, even though you know that's true, it's going to come through in your tone of voice. So what we're using in this second one is a little what I call Jewish guilt. Catholic guilt works just as well. I haven't heard from you. I left you a message, but I haven't heard from you, so I thought I'd try you again. I'm not. Then you say who you're calling from, who you're calling regarding. You're not from them, but you're calling about them, and then simply hang up the phone. If you have not called me back after the second message, I've got one more. Now, before I show you and tell you this one, I want you to know, if you work for yourself, feel free to use it. If you work for somebody else, check with your manager to make sure they're comfortable with it. I'm very comfortable with it. I love the message, and you're going to see why in a second, and it gets a really good result, better than the first two usually. But it can be a little iffy, and I'll show you why. The third message is this. Hi, Bob. This is Jeff Goldberg. My phone number is, I pause and then I say my phone number. Hey, Bob, I've called and left you 2 messages over the last couple of weeks, but I haven't heard back from you. You don't say the word smile. You put a smile on your face here and go, would you please give me the professional courtesy of a quick call back? I'm calling you regarding Cisco Systems. Once again, my number is 516-608-4136. Now, the crucial part here is to make sure that when you say, would you please give me the professional courtesy of a quick call back, you've got to have a smile on your face, because a smile on your face equals a smile in your voice. If you sound angry or upset or flat, would you please give me the professional courtesy of a quick call back? I sound angry. And the person on the other end of the line is going to say, who the heck is this person to say something like that? However, when you're smiling and you sound happy, it's not taken that way. Now, I've used this over and over and over the last 18, 19 years. And I would be lying if I said I never had somebody call back and say, who the hell are you to leave me a message like that? I'd be lying if I said that never happened. However, I can probably count on less than 2 hands the number of times it actually happened. You may be sitting there thinking it probably happens all the time. It does not if you put the smile on your face. And think about this. They are being discourteous and they are being unprofessional when they don't return your call, as far as I'm concerned. All I want to do is give them a little subtle jab. Now, here's what typically happens, at least my experience has been, when people call you back after this message, it's almost always, hey, Jeff, this is Bob. I know you called me a couple of times over the last few weeks. I've been swamped. I'm so sorry. How can I help you? And remember, I call on presidents, CEOs, and vice presidents of sales or above. Vice president, executive vice president, senior vice president. And those people call me back and say, I'm so sorry. I've been swamped. How can I help you? This takes a little cojones, a little chutzpah, depending on which language you like to use. And again, if you work for somebody else, make sure your manager is comfortable with this. But I'm telling you, this will get you a good result. I don't see anybody these days getting better than a 20% callback rate. But if you can get 1 out of 10 calls returned, 1 out of 5 calls returned, even better. If you can get some return, you're dramatically increasing the number of people that you speak with and the number of appointments you'll get. Remember, this is a script like your rebuttal scripts and your opening script. You should print these out, have them on your wall. Be prepared. This happens too quickly. It happens too fast in the game of cold calling that you've got to be prepared. Otherwise, you're going to get shut down every single time. So now I want to give you some notes on how to excel when you're cold calling. First of all, pick up the phone, dial it, record your results. You should be tracking your activity. How many dials did I make? How many times did I get through to the right person? How many appointments did I get? If I'm working with a coaching client, I have them do this. All I need is those 3 metrics. How many times you dialed the phone, how many times you got through to the right person, and how many times you got an appointment. You give me those 3 metrics, I can tell you what you're doing wrong. Because many of us have heard this phrase over and over. Sales is a numbers game. And to a certain extent, it certainly is. It's a skills game and a numbers game. But it's also a metrics game. And what I'm looking for is the relationship between those numbers. How many dials does it take to get an appointment? I'm sorry, how many dials does it take to get through to the right person? How many times do you have to get through to the right person to get an appointment? I know what those numbers should be approximately. And if the ratios are wrong, let's say this. If your ratio of dials to getting through to the right person isn't good, then I know you're either bad at getting past the gatekeeper or you're not leaving the right voicemail message. If you're good at getting through to people, but you're not good at getting appointments, I know you don't know your rebuttals. So I know what to work on with you. So track your results. Pick up the phone, dial it, record the results, and then make another call immediately. What you should not be doing is making a call, then doing research on the next call, making a call, then doing research on the next call. And by the way, if you're going to do research, it should not take a long time. When I used to make cold calls all the time, there was 0 research. Pick up the phone, make lots of dials. I'm not against doing some research so that you can be prepared to say something intelligent. Maybe you can find something about the company that you're calling into, a problem that you know they have, which might help you in your pitch, a word I hate, when you're talking to them. But if you're going to do that, do it all at once. And by the way, don't do it during prime selling time. I used to do my research on Saturdays. If you're a religious person and you don't work Saturdays, do it on a Sunday. Do it in the evenings while you're watching TV. But don't sit and make a call and then do your research. I actually observed a guy one time. I was sitting in a company and sitting with a salesperson just watching him. He made a call, didn't get through, recorded his results, and then did 20 minutes worth of research before the next call with me just sitting there going, oh my God. How many calls can you make in a day if every one takes 20 minutes to research? So do your research in the off hours, make the calls, and you can always analyze later on. And always prepare tomorrow's cold call list today. Get that done today so you can walk in and bang out your calls. If you're doing it right, you should not have to spend a whole day prospecting. And by the way, I also don't like when you have call blitzes. I'm not a big fan of companies that do call blitzes. You know, you've got everybody making calls all day. Sometimes it's good for camaraderie because nobody wants to make the call. So by making everybody do it, they'll get it done. But my experience is typically, if you're doing it right, most salespeople do not need to prospect more than an hour a day. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, but on average an hour, because if you're doing it right, each call should take 3 to 5 minutes tops, including objections or rebuttals. If it's taking more than 5 minutes traditionally or regularly when you're making calls, you're either getting beat up, in other words, getting objection after objection after objection, or you're trying to sell over the phone. That's not the purpose of an appointment making call. There's only one purpose to an appointment making call. Get the appointment or don't and move on. Second tip, smile. I said it before when we were just talking about leaving a voicemail. Put a smile on your face physically. And I know I look dopey when I'm talking like this, except you can't sound unhappy when you're smiling. A smile on your face is a smile in your voice. You should be thinking, I truly have something excellent for this person. I'm terrific at what I do. Now, I'm telling you that because I believe it. My customers tell me that, and I truly believe it. So when I'm making a call, I believe I'm doing somebody a favor, not just myself, not their family. I'm trying hard to help you, which also helps me and my family. It's hard for them to get excited unless you sound like you're excited. So you don't have to be over the top. You don't have to be a radio DJ. Hey, it's Jeff in the morning with you. News and traffic next. But you should sound like you're happy. Put a smile on your face. Stand up. This is a great piece of advice that I got from my last boss. When I walked into his office to meet him, he had this huge desk, and on the side there was a podium. Now, I figured as a professional speaker, he's gonna have a podium, but I've never seen anybody with a podium in his office. And during my interview with him, I said, what's the podium for? Do you practice speeches there? He goes, no. I said, well, what's the podium for? He goes, go walk over to it. I walked over, and there was a telephone on the podium. I said, why is there a telephone on your podium? He goes, Jeff, that's where I make my calls. And he explained it to me. When you stand up, you sound better. If any of you have ever taken singing lessons, you'll know that what they tell you is you don't breathe from your chest, you breathe from your diaphragm, which I don't know if my camera's showing it, but I'm pointing to my rather ample gut right now. You breathe from your diaphragm. When I'm speaking all day, when I'm training a company, I'm doing my best to concentrate on speaking from my diaphragm, because otherwise, first of all, I'm going to burn out my vocal cords and I'm going to get exhausted. It's exhausting. When you stand, well, actually, when you sit, your diaphragm is right below your lungs, above your stomach, below your lungs. When you sit, your diaphragm is crunched. When you stand, your diaphragm expands and you naturally sound better. That's why most of the time when you see a professional speaker, they're standing instead of sitting. Look, I'd like to sit all day when I'm training people, except I sound better when I'm standing. And when you stand, you tend to gesture more naturally, like you do in a real conversation, at least if you're Jewish or Italian. So you want it to sound like you're having a regular conversation. In fact, my advice is always, your conversations with prospects should sound like you're talking to your best friend, minus the profanity. So stand up when you're making your calls. Dial the phone, and as it's ringing, simply stand up. I also urge you to have a headset. I use a headset like this. It's wireless. I can be 300 feet from my desk when I'm talking. I'm sometimes out on my deck looking towards the ocean when I'm making calls. But have a headset, because that way you can stand, even if it's a wired headset, one with a wire attached to the phone, you can still stand up. But I like the wireless one because I can wander around and gesture and do all kinds of things while I'm talking. Next tip on excelling. Either speak with the person you're looking to get to or leave a message every single time. If you're not leaving a message, they can't call you back. Voicemail. Try various options. The way I always did it was, if I call you today is Friday. If I call you today, I'm going to wait till next Friday or maybe next Thursday until I call you again, and then maybe the following Thursday or Friday. So I'll leave you 3 messages over a 2-week period. There's about 1 week in between each one. What I would absolutely not do is call somebody day after day after day after day, unless you've got something to sell them that's time sensitive. You know they need it right now and it's going to expire soon. Other than that, 1 a week, no more than 3 in a month. And if somebody hasn't called you back after 3 messages, especially if you're using the ones I'm suggesting, put them on hold. I almost used a word from 40 years ago. I was going to say a tickler. Put a reminder for yourself to try them again in a month or maybe 2 months or 3 months, depending on what your prospect base is. I personally will almost never call anybody back if they don't call me. I won't try them again unless I'm really, really eager to get in touch with that company. If I've left them 3 voicemails and they haven't called me back. But the reason for that is I have an unlimited prospect base. Every company in the world that has salespeople that speak English is a good prospect for me. So it's impossible for me to run out of prospects. Some people I've met, though, have a very limited prospect base. So you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing for you. But for me, 3 calls, you're not calling me back, I'm done with you. I'm on to the next one. If you have a less large prospect base or a smaller prospect base, try your 3 calls. Wait another 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, or 3 months, depending on what's appropriate for you. But you want to make sure that you're looking for the fish that are biting, not the ones that aren't. And I use that example because I take it from the movie The Perfect Storm. If you haven't seen the movie, it's an old movie, so I'm not going to. Well, I am going to spoil it for you, but it's about fishermen who go out from Gloucester, Massachusetts, and they're trying to catch fish. It's George Clooney is the captain of the ship, and Mark Wahlberg is in the movie. And by the way, Clooney as a dirty, scruffy, bearded sea ship captain still looks better than any other 10 males. But they go out and they can't catch fish to save their lives. There's a mutiny. The guys are falling overboard. Everything's going wrong. Clooney at one point goes, "Hey, I've got an idea. Let's go someplace else." And they take the boat someplace else. And now the fish are jumping out of the water into the boat. They can't not catch fish. So he went where the fish were biting. Now, I actually gave this example one time, and somebody in the back of the room raised their hand and says, "Jeff, don't they all die at the end of the movie?" Yes, they do. It's not a perfect example, but it's a good one. You got to go where the fish are biting. When you get a gatekeeper on the phone, an assistant, don't try to sell the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper is there to keep you away, not to let you in. So don't try to sell the gatekeeper. The less information you can give to a gatekeeper, the better off you are. Always ask to leave a message if you possibly can. And I always ask, does the person have voicemail? I'd rather leave a person a voicemail than give the message to the gatekeeper. But if I'm leaving the message with the gatekeeper, it's almost the same exact message. I would say, please be sure to tell her, my name is Jeff Goldberg, Goldberg. My phone number is 516-608-4136. Would you mind repeating that back to make sure we got it right? Not you got it right, we got it right. And then please be sure to tell her, I'm calling regarding Cisco systems. Have a great day. And then hang up the phone. The longer you stay on with the gatekeeper, the worse your chances are of getting through. Because if you give too much information with the gatekeeper, he or she is probably going to tell you, oh, the boss wouldn't be interested in that. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten through to the right person, even though a gatekeeper told me they wouldn't be interested. They sure are. Now, remember, it's not the gatekeeper's fault. They're just doing their job. They've been told to keep people like you and me away. And I like the words, please be sure to tell her. Do never say, please be sure to tell her it's important. Because when this person does call you back and finds out it's a sales call, they're going to be really pissed off. Don't do that. The more information you give to a gatekeeper, the worse off you are. So what I will actually do is if I say, my name is Jeff Goldberg, my number is this, please be sure to tell her I'm calling regarding Cisco systems. I'm not from Cisco systems. I'm calling about Cisco systems. If the gatekeeper says, well, what about Cisco systems? My response is going to be, I'm sorry, I'm being called into a meeting. I've got to run. And then I hang up the phone. I don't mind if the gatekeeper is upset at me because I didn't give them the information. They're doing their job to try to keep me away. I'm doing my job to try to get through. Always ask for the appointment. If the person shows you resistance, they give you an objection, give them one rebuttal and then ask for the appointment again. Don't shoot all your bullets at once. Don't give them all 7 rebuttals. One rebuttal, ask for the appointment, move on. Don't ask, how are you today? Now, that's regional. If you're down south in the United States, you probably have to say, how y'all doing today? If you're in a very rural area, yes, that's appropriate. Where I live in the New York City area, you ask people how they're doing today, you're going to hear this most of the time. I'm fine. What the hell do you want? Get to the point. Remember, I told you before, the only 2 people that ask, how are you today when they call are your mother, and I know it's not my mom calling, and salespeople. The purpose of the call is not to find out how they are today. It's to try to get an appointment. Do that. Don't do anything that slows you down. When you're calling for appointments, just power through it. It really shouldn't take up that much of your day if you're doing it right. And be sure to track your results accurately. It makes a very big difference. It takes very little time. Never ever use jargon like we're having a price down promotion or we do the last mile. I worked with a telephone company that used to talk about we handle the last mile. Well, guess what? The people they were selling to don't know what the last mile is. I had to ask what it was. So you know what it means, but they don't. There's an old saying in sales, when you confuse them, you lose them. Time your calls. Most phones these days have a timer on it. I don't need you to write down how much time you spent on each call. I'm just telling you that if it takes more than 3 to 5 minutes per call, you're probably doing something wrong. You're either doing too many objections or rebuttals and getting beat up, or you're trying to sell over the phone. Try to never make an appointment to make an appointment. And what I mean by that is when they say, call me next Monday and we'll set something up. Well, the thought in my head is, are you kidding me? Do you know how hard it was to get you on the phone this time? I'm not calling you next Monday. So when somebody says, call me next week, I got to talk to somebody else, just say, hey, I've got my calendar right here. Why don't we set up the appointment right now? How's Tuesday at 3? Sometimes people will tell you, well, I don't have my calendar, or I've got to talk to my partner and see when they're available. Here's what I would do then. I'd say, look, I've got Tuesday at 3 available. Why don't we set the appointment now? I'm going to send you an Outlook invite. When you get the invite, if you find you look at your calendar and Tuesday at 3 is not good, just respond to the invite and say, hey, Tuesday at 3 is not good, but this time is good. And I'll find a way to accommodate your calendar. Or if somebody's really resistant, you could say, look, why don't we just pencil it in on our calendars and I'll call to confirm before I come. Now, I got to tell you, I don't want to confirm appointments before I come. There's only a couple of instances in which I will confirm. One, if you tell me, Jeff, you've got to confirm the appointment before you come, then I'll do it. Number two, if I'm setting an appointment for more than 3 weeks in advance, I will confirm the appointment before I come. Or if I have to travel more than an hour and a half to meet with you, I will confirm the appointment before I come. But those are the only 3 instances. Why? Because if I call you to confirm the morning of the appointment, there's a very good chance you're going to say something like, "Oh, thank goodness you called, Jeff. I am swamped. It's a fire here. Can't meet with you today." I'd rather show up and find out they can't meet with me, which is much less likely if I'm actually there, than give them a chance to cancel over the phone. And on the Outlook invite, they've got all my contact information, so they can get in touch with me if they need to cancel. You should rehearse every day, assuming that you're not like me working in an office alone. If you work with somebody else, the best thing you can do is before you get on the phone, just turn to somebody next to you and say, "Would you do me a favor? Just role play with me for 2 minutes. You play the part of the customer. Just give me one objection or two," because usually if you're doing it like I used to first thing in the morning, you got to get your brain and your voice in gear. Sometimes people need 3 or 4 cups of coffee just to wake up. So you want to make sure you're doing this sharp. And by having somebody role play with you, you're going to get your brain going. You're going to remember, oh yeah, that's the rebuttal for that. Make sure that that the person is working with you, and have them give you a critique. Remember that when you're speaking on the phone, 84% of how somebody understands you is your tone of voice. So rehearse if you possibly can. If it's legally and technically possible, and I am not an attorney, so speak to your legal department about this, but if it's legally and technically possible, record your calls and listen back to them. There is no better way to get better at cold calling other than having a coach, but than listening to your own calls. And I only know this because my last boss made me listen to my calls. Painful. And when I went to work for him, by the way, I had 29 years of sales experience. So here's what I found that happened quite often. Somebody would give me objection A, and I'd be coming back with rebuttal B, because we're not listening well. So if it's legally and technically possible, record your calls and listen back to them. You will improve greatly. Remember, prospects would be concerned about you wasting their time or being talked into something that they don't want or don't need or can't afford. Always remember the phrases, no pressure, no obligation, and let's just get together. It's more fun, by the way, if you do it in the Schwarzenegger accent. By the way, when I do live trainings in person with people, I always get everybody to do the "let's just get together" in the Schwarzenegger accent. It's a lot of fun. If somebody gives you the same objection 2 times in a row, they win. "Jeff, I'm busy." "Oh, that's okay. I just called to set an appointment. How's Tuesday at 3? "Jeff, I just told you I'm busy." "Oh, so sorry. Must have had wax in my ears. When would be a good time for you?" And if they say never, they win. Or if they give you 3 different objections and 3 different rebuttals, they win again. They've got more reasons to not get together with me than I've got to get together with them. Move on to the next one. And when all else fails, remember, you can always say, "I understand. Let's just get together." I've never left anyone's office and heard them say, "That was a waste of my time." I promise I won't waste your time either. How's Tuesday at 3? This is a phrase that my stepfather taught me years ago, that sales is a great career, because every day you get to wake up and look yourself in the mirror and give yourself a raise. And then all you have to do is go out and earn it. I love that. And I thought we would end this prospecting training with that thought. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If my mouse will come back to me, because it dies if I don't use it for 10 minutes. And let me find StreamYard again. Nope, that's not it. There you guys are. All right. Let's see if anybody has any questions. If you have any questions or anything you want to ask me about anything, you can put it in right now. Facebook user Dan Schwartz. Great information. Thank you, Dan. Glad it was useful. Don Levine from Sharp Search. Good to see you, my friend. Ray Aurora says, loves that third voicemail message. Me too, my friend. And Jeff, not sure if it's Facebook or not. However, your screenshots or videos are blurry. Oh, no, that's not good. If you guys would please reach out to me, let me know if that's the same thing for you. I do look back at these videos and they're not blurry for me. Might need to clean your glasses, or maybe it is my problem. But please, if you guys are getting that, if my videos and screenshots are blurry, please do let me know. I haven't been drinking today, so I'm not blurry. Anyways, if you guys don't have any questions, we will close early. I'll give you about 30 more seconds. Questions, comments, anything I can do for anybody, whether related to prospecting or not. Actually, while we're doing that, while I'm waiting, I'm going to take a quick look at who's up for next week so I can give you a hint. I'm just pulling up my calendar. Bill Chaka from Intelligent Motivation. Yeah, I remember talking to Bill. Good guy. You're going to want to tune in for this one. All right. I'm not seeing anybody else. Steve Kent says, thanks again. Great info. Thank you, Steve, for being here as always. And thank you all. If there's ever anything I can do for any of you, reach out through the Sales Pro Network. You can get in touch with me directly. My email is jeff@jgsalespro.com, and I'm here to help you. We're all in this together, boys and girls. It ain't easy selling. I'm here to help you do that, and it's my pleasure. Anything else I can do for you guys, please let me know. And as always, I will end with this. Sales is a game of making things happen, so get out there and make sales happen. Oops, wait a minute. Joan Langton says, I've forgotten the bit about smiling when leaving my voicemail. You trained our company probably 20 years ago. Wow, I am old, Joan. You probably were about 10 years old when we did that, so good for you because you look great. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Go make sales happen. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye now.